Every time prices rise, you lose a little more of your freedom. Groceries, rent, fuel, they all creep higher, quietly, relentlessly. And if you've ever felt like your paycheck is shrinking even when the numbers stay the same, you're not crazy. You're watching one of the oldest tricks in history, the invisible hand that moves wealth from the many to the few. Because inflation isn't just about prices going up. It's about power and who gets to keep it. For most of us, inflation feels like chaos. Bills climb, savings shrink, and the future feels like it's slipping away. But for those at the top, it's order, a rhythm that keeps the machine alive. It's how governments fund wars without asking for your permission. It's how corporations erase their debts while you work to pay yours. And it's how the wealthy watch their assets multiply while everyone else fights to keep up. But to understand how we got trapped in this cycle, we have to go back. There was a time when money was heavy. It clinked, it shined, it was backed by gold. Every note you held represented something real, locked in a vault. That kept governments honest. You couldn't print gold. If you spent more than you earned, you had two choices: raise taxes or admit failure. Inflation was a symptom of chaos, war, disaster, mismanagement. Not a policy, not a plan. Then came the crash of the 1930s. Banks failed, factories closed, prices fell. It wasn't inflation that terrified people back then. It was deflation. Money became more valuable over time. Nobody spent, everyone hoarded. Debt grew heavier every day. And economies froze like engines in the winter. Out of that crisis, governments learned a dangerous lesson. Inflation could be useful. A little bit of rising prices kept people spending. It made debts feel smaller. It made everything look like growth. By the end of World War II, nations were drowning in debt. Instead of paying it back, they inflated it away. They quietly devalued the money and nobody noticed. Because life went on. The same loaf of bread cost more, but somehow it felt normal. Then came 1971, the moment the world left the gold standard behind. President Nixon closed the gold window, and money lost its anchor. From that day on, the dollar wasn't backed by metal. It was backed by belief. Paper became promise, and promise became policy. Money could now be created in infinite amounts as long as people kept believing it had value. Inflation stopped being a problem, it became the plan. From that point forward, the rules flipped. Savers lost, borrowers won. If you held cash, inflation stole it. If you held debt or assets, inflation rewarded you. Every dollar borrowed today would be cheaper to repay tomorrow. Meanwhile, houses, stocks, land, all climbed higher in value. And that's when inflation revealed its true face. It wasn't chaos, it was control. Because when your money loses value, you're forced to keep moving. You can't stop, you can't rest. You have to work, spend, and borrow just to stay in place. Inflation doesn't just drain your wallet, it reshapes your behavior. It punishes patience and rewards risk. It turns saving into fear and speculation into hope. And that's exactly what the system needs: constant motion. The rich understand this. They don't fear inflation, they own it. They buy the assets that rise with it. They borrow money while it's cheap and pay it back with money that's worth less. They don't store cash, they store claims on the future. Meanwhile, the rest of society is told to save for a rainy day. But saving, in an inflationary world, is like collecting ice cubes in a desert. Every minute they melt a little more. When the 2008 crisis hit, governments printed trillions to save the system. Not by giving it to people, but by propping up banks and markets. Stock prices recovered. Real estate boomed. But wages, they barely moved. Once again, inflation was the silent tax that few understood. Then came 2020. A pandemic, a shutdown, and a new flood of printed money. This time reaching households directly. For a moment, it felt like everyone had more cash. Then prices exploded. Groceries, housing, everything soaring. And once again, those with assets grew richer while those with only income fell behind. Different decade, same story. Inflation doesn't happen by accident. It's the cost of a system built on debt and endless growth. And as long as we demand more today than we're willing to pay for tomorrow, the cycle continues. The truth is harsh. Without inflation, this system collapses. But with it, ordinary people can never truly get ahead, because the game is designed to keep them running. The question isn't whether inflation is good or bad. It's good for someone, just not for you. So when you hear economists say, a little inflation is healthy, remember, It's not your health they're talking about. It's the health of the system that feeds on your effort, your time, and your future. Because inflation isn't just numbers on a screen. It's the quiet heartbeat of an economy that never sleeps, the invisible force that transfers power. And the reason the rich always seem one step ahead, it's not a mistake, it's the design. And once you see that, you'll never look at a price tag the same way again. If this opened your eyes, stay tuned. The system hides in plain sight, and the more you understand it, the less it can use you to keep itself alive.